Hi, my name is Jason Oxsen, owner of 208 Discs here in Boise, Idaho. I'm also a sponsored player for Team Dynamic Discs and Team Cali Connection Disc Golf. I just wanted to do a little in the bag video today. I haven't done one of these yet. I've had a number of people asking me what's in my bag lately, so I figured I would do this. So let's get going. So this is kind of an in the bag, in the cart type deal. I've been swapping back and forth depending on which courses I'm playing and the terrain and whatnot. Also, if it's a single day tournament or multiple days, kind of makes a decision on what I'm using. This year I've been using a Zuka backpack cart. I was formerly using the Zuka all-terrain cart here, this purple and gray one. When the backpack cart came out, I went to that. I've got the Dynamic Disc Sniper bag in here, which works really well. I've been thinking about putting a Commander in here because the Commander is a really nice fit for the cart, but I like the way that the Sniper fits in here, and it's real convenient. It still allows me to use my hinge seat to get into my top pocket and all that. So the Zuka cart's been really nice this year for me, helped taking a load off, especially on some of these longer tournaments. I highly recommend them. I've got mine kind of upgraded with some GoPro and whatnot, but it's been real fun being able to use this year and take some of the load off of a long tournament for sure. On more terrain courses and longer tournaments where I'm kind of trying to keep everything with me, but I'm not necessarily looking to use my cart, I'm using the Dynamic Disc Ranger H2O. They just recently dropped the H2O in the Spec Ops, so I'm probably going to be making a switch over to that, as well as utilizing the Lat 64 E-Z-Go backpack a little bit. I'm carrying less molds right now, so I'm covering everything that I'm currently throwing in the bag, but I'm kind of fine-tuning it a little bit and trying to knock some of them out. So I'll cover everything that I've been using recently. So loving the H2O bag, carries everything that I need. It's got my little hand-eye stainless mini from Crispin. Love that thing. I'll start out with my putters and kind of work out from there. So I am using the Dynamic Disc Classic Blend Judge for my go-to putter. I love a beaded putter. Classic Blend is really nice because it allows me to maintain the same disc throughout the seasons. In the summer it doesn't get too soft, in the winter it doesn't get too hard. I just like the consistent feel of the Special Blend myself, and I like a beaded putter, so the Judge is my go-to. This one's starting to get a little bit beat, so I've been kind of selective as to when I use it. It doesn't quite come back as much on some of the upshots that I'm doing, and has been flipping over a little bit on some of my off the tee drives with a putter. So I'm keeping it in the bag because I love it. It's been kind to me, but I'm slowly working that one out. I've got these sick new swirly hand-eye supplies from Crispin, Special Blends. Been working them in. This one's kind of my freshie that I keep for when I want to make sure it comes back. This one's getting some heavy play. So again, Special Blend Judges, these are just my hand-eyes. And I've also been incorporating a Lucid Judge into the bag a little bit. I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with throwing the putter off the tee on some holes, and also I'm starting to extend my range a little bit on upshots. And this Lucid Judge has been nice because it just holds up a little bit better. I can really get on it, and I don't have to worry about flipping it over like I do with my Special Blend Judge, especially the one that's beat in. So this has kind of been new for me, this Lucid Judge, and I'm really digging it for some of my longer upshots and shorter off the tee shots. And we'll go into some mid ranges here. I guess I'll start flippy and work my way up. So for my flip dog, I throw the Westside Tersus in the tourney plastic. Most of my mids that I throw are pretty heavy. I like to stay right around 176 to 180. I do have a really lightweight Justice that I'm messing around right now with for fun, but I like my mids heavy. This is my Tersus. This is the one that I throw when I don't want anything to come back. Nice glidey Anheuser shots, approach shots. It's been solid for me. I do have to occasionally change these out for fresh ones, just so that I don't have to worry about any kind of cut roll or anything on my Anheuser shots, but I really like this for my super flippy mid. Next step up in stability in my bag is going to be the Lucid Warrant. Kind of getting away from this a little bit because my Moonshine Truth is getting so beat that it's turning over easier, and I just am having a little bit of trouble. I'm getting on my mids a little bit more now, and the Warrant is flipping over a little bit more for me than I'd like it to. I'm kind of looking for a slightly understable to straight, and the evidence is slowly working its way into my bag, getting away from the Warrant a little bit, but it's a great disc, especially for slower arm speeds, straight to understable. Then I've got my gold line Claymore, which I actually got away from. I was really stoked when this disc first came out because I was looking for a straight mid-range that goes a long ways, and I was throwing this a ton, and I kind of got away from it a little bit when I was experimenting with the evidence Warrant combination. But I recently put this back in my bag a couple of months ago, and I really dig this disc. It's in the gold line. This one's starting to get a bit beat. I might swap it out for a new one, but this is kind of my almost everything mid-range. Doesn't have a lot of overstability to it, but if I put it out on a soft ante, it'll hold it. If I throw it straight and hard, it will hold that as well with some really good glide. So a lot of my straight shots, tunnel shots, slight anhyzers, I've been utilizing the gold line Claymore, and I absolutely love this disc. I'd actually like to maybe bag an opto Claymore as well, just to get a little fade at the end on something. But I throw my gold line Claymore a ton. Moving up from that, I've got my Team Stamp dyed Moonshine Truth. Love the Moonshine Truth. It tends to be one of the Moonshine molds that is a little bit more understable than its Lucid counterpart, which used to be the case, but we're seeing a lot more molds now in the Moonshine actually be a touch more overstable. But right off the shelf, I love this thing. It's straight. If I throw it hard, it'll snap up, dip out a little bit to the right, and kind of hold that with not a lot of fade. So I really like the Moonshine Truth for those shots. Carry a lot of mids in my bags. Really kind of trying to work on my mids and fairways, but at the same time, my mid-range selection is one that I'm kind of trying to thin down just a little bit so I'm not overthinking things. I carry a lot of mids. They all do something a little bit differently, but I'd like to kind of combine a few if I can. So I'm working on that over the winter. Then instability, I've got this is my Team Stamp EMAC Truth and my Lucid Verdict. My Lucid Verdict is probably my favorite disc in my entire bag. I absolutely love this disc. I push it on everybody. I have a slower arm speed. It works really well for me. I use it on a lot of just glidey hyzer shots. If I throw it hard enough straight, it'll stand up and go with a nice little soft predictable fade. But probably one of my favorite discs in my bag is my Lucid Verdict. Really predictable, slight overstable, just consistent. I love it. The EMAC Truth came out this last season, and at first I didn't really think it was going to have a spot in my bag until I saw what it could really do. I like the EMAC Verdict combo because for me, being a slower arm speed, again, I utilize it on a lot of soft hyzers, but I can throw a Verdict out and it pretty much just holds that arc and that line all the way till the end. The EMAC Truth is one that you can get on and the thing will just glide for days. It's super fast. It says it's a 5-speed. I put it near a 6. If I rip this thing hard, it is going straight, 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 and then it dumps at the end. So I can actually bag both of these really nicely because the Verdict will be a nice consistent arc in on my target, where the EMAC I can throw it out hard to the right and straight and have a nice predictable dump at the end. So these two are working really well together in my bag. And then of course I've got a Justice. This is my Team Stamp, but this is just a Lucid Justice 172. I actually went a little lighter on this just because the Justice is such a hog for me. I don't quite get it out there as far as other players do, but this is my obviously my utility overstable, just very predictable, gets me out of a lot of trouble. I honestly probably pull this thing out of the bag once, maybe twice a round, and it does exactly what I want it to, and it's usually saving my ass. So I really like that about it. Stays in the bag. Like a way more overstable, shorter Verdict for me. Just gets me out of trouble most of the time. We'll move on to Fairways. So Fairways was kind of a weak part of my game for a very long time. Although I had mentors and people helping me out with my game, I kind of went from mids to drivers. and didn't really pay attention to fairways the way that I should have. I now preach to a lot of customers and newer players all the time that it's very important to get your fairway game up before moving up to high-speed drivers. I realize that that's the truth now. Can't say enough about how important fairways have been to my game as of late. So I'm really working on my fairway game, and I've got a really solid lineup finally. When I was sponsored by Dynamic Disc and had to move over from a pretty dominant Innova bag, fairways were one that I knew I was going to have to work on, but it was kind of a fresh slate because I wasn't throwing a ton of Innova fairways. So I relied heavily on flight numbers and just word of mouth and stuff to kind of pick out my selection. But again, with a slower arm speed, I throw some more understable stuff that works out for me. So my flip dog is my Opto Fury. Anybody who knows me knows that this is probably my favorite disc in my bag. I'm very grateful that I found this disc. At the time, I was looking for a replacement for Sidewinder / Roadrunner-ish. I wanted to be able to kind of hyzer snap something straight with some good glide, or be able to throw something out on an Annie and just have it kind of float out of it and go up to the target. And that's what this Fury has done. I throw it in the Opto plastic. I find the gold line to be just a little flippy for the shots that I'm using it for. So I throw it in the Opto because even though I throw it out on an Anheuser, the Opto, it just seems to be a little more overstable, and it kind of pulls itself out of that while gliding up to the basket. So I utilize this a lot for that. I also throw rollers with this, although I've been experimenting with some rollers with my Sword, which is definitely more stable than this, but this was my go-to roller for a while, and mostly all Anheuser shots with this, or some tunnel shots where I want to flip it up and let it ride. It's starting to get a little bit beat, so it's having a harder time coming back. I'm going to swap it out with a new one here before too long, but that's my flippy fairway. My straight fairway is a Gold Line River. Now I throw this in a lighter weight. This is a 171. I had a 169 in my bag for a while too, but this is pretty much my straight fairway. Tons of glide on a river. I've seen people putting this thing as far as a high-speed driver. It's kind of what drew my attention to it at first, is because I could ride the wind with it and didn't really have to throw it super hard. It kind of eliminates some of the error that I would have with a fairway. I don't have to hyzer snap this thing. I can snap it off straight. Nice subtle little dip out to the right. Goes straight for days. Soft, predictable fade. The fade doesn't get me into a lot of trouble. So I'm really digging the river. And then my other fairways with a little more stability is the Opto Culverin. Super stoked that I found this. I can do little touch forehands with it. This is actually like slightly overstable for me. I'm a slower arm speed once again. I can throw this thing hard, snap it off, and it will hold that for a good period down the fairway, and then a nice soft predictable fade. I was really excited when the Gold Line Culverin came out because it'd be a little easier for me to manipulate the flight on that, and I was expecting it to be a kind of an extended version of the Culverin. The Gold Line actually turned out to be exceptionally more hoggy in my eyes than the Opto, and so it didn't make the bag. But I absolutely love this Opto Culverin for my slightly overstable, just fast, low shots to the right with a slow, predictable fade for me. This one is getting a little bit beat as well and doesn't come back as much. So I've been testing the Lucid Convict right now. When the numbers first came out on this, I didn't really think it was going to be something that I'd put in my bag. It seemed kind of similar to my Culverin for me, but I love the flight on it. It has a harder fade than my Culverin does. So this is one that I can snap off to the right. It'll hold that for a while, and then it'll pull itself out. It's also kind of my Culverin in the wind. For me, it stands up a little bit better, and I know it's coming out. It covers all the fairway distances that I'm looking for. So I've been kind of incorporating this Lucid Convict a little bit into my game. Still working on it, but it's for me, it's a little bit more overstable Culverin, at least at the end when the fade comes in. So got my Justice there. All right, so let's move on to drivers. So when I was 14 years old, I had multiple compound fractures on my right elbow, Had surgery. I was in the hospital for months for a broken arm, believe it or not. And I have pretty much an artificial elbow on the right side. They had to open me up. It's affected my extension, my snap. It makes me a slower arm speed because of it. I try to compensate with that a little bit with some more understable plastic and flexing things out. But the truth is I don't crush like a lot of my counterparts do. And I try to make up for that in my fairway and my mid-range, my approach game essentially. So I'm not known as a big arm driver by any means. I get by. I'm probably about 325, 330 consistently if I'm trying to be accurate. Top out probably 350. So a lot of my drivers are in lighter weights. When I threw Innova, I threw a lot of Blizzard and Starlight. Obviously, when the wind picks up, they get a little bit squirrely. But I throw my airs in the higher end of the lightweight weight class, if that makes any sense. So usually 157, 158, 159. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about DD Latitude Westside is that their air plastic, in my opinion, holds up way better than, say, Starlight or Blizzard plastic. It just holds the line better, has a little bit more stability to it, in my opinion, than I ever had with like the Blizzards or the Starlight. I'm able to throw these into the wind without too much problem. Usually I just disc up in stability a little bit to compensate. But so we're gonna go through my drivers, and they're light. We'll go the opposite this time, and we'll go over to stable to understable. So my hog dog is my Lucid Air Enforcer, 157 gram. I give up a little bit of distance with this, with my slower arm speed, but I never flip it over. If it's a hard headwind or if I need to go out over some water or something like that, and I don't want to stress whatsoever about it flipping up, the Enforcer is my jam. I throw it on a lot of hyzer stuff. I actually just won my first open tournament at a winter series here last weekend, where I threw this Enforcer probably 80% of the time. I did give up a little bit of distance, but it was a shorter course, and I was able to give up that distance and still kind of put the disc where I wanted it in the conditions where other people had trouble. So I love the Air Enforcer. It's my Overstable, just my hoggy disc that I can get some D on and kind of put it where I want it in any condition. When it's not super windy, I use a Westside Air Giant. Again, about 157 grams. Love the Air Giant. I've noticed that, and I don't buy into this all the time, but the colors of the Westside Air to me do seem, in fact, to affect overstability a little bit. I found the yellow one to be just about where I want it to be. I can actually flip this thing up into a headwind and use it for my distance driver. It'll dip out to the right, comes back pretty hard. This one's getting beat, so I really like it. It's like a more overstable version of my sword right now, a little hoggier than my World. I throw it on a lot of hyzers where I don't need such an extreme fade at the end like my Enforcer. I really love my Giant. I throw it a ton. And then one step down from that in stability for me is an Air World. Again, 157. So my World and my Giant are pretty much the same, especially right now because my Giant's getting beat. But they do overlap a little bit. The only reason why I still bag both of them is because I've noticed when I throw my Giant out on a hyzer, it comes in pretty sharp. It'll come in steep and hit. Doesn't usually cut roll much, usually sits well. But my World will actually come in at a bit of an angle, a more smoother angle in, whereas my Giant's pretty steep. So I utilize both of these. They're really close to the same disc for me, but just the way that they come in comes into play on different courses. So I keep both of them in the bag. And then we got my swords. My go-to drivers for sure. Getting really hard to find these air swords. The general consensus is that there's one air machine that they utilize for things like air trespasses, air giants, swords, whatnot, and they just don't do the runs quite as often as other production molds. So these things are getting really hard to find. They haven't dropped off the order box on the DD order form, so there's still hope. although they're grayed out a lot of the year. When they do open up, I'm gonna go off. But yeah, and so the sword it's a 12 speed, 5 glide, 0-2 on the turn and fade. For me, it's very Wraith-like. It was kind of my Wraith/Katana replacement. In the air plastic, it's a lot easier for me to get these to stand up and do what I want them to do. I actually carry 3 different air swords in here because I keep one that is super overstable, which is my freshie. And then I have my green stamp here, which has been thrown quite a bit. It stands up for me nicely, starting to lose some of the fade. If I want to go down the fairway and fade hard at the end, I use my fresh sword. If I need a slight fade on it, I throw my green sword. And then this is my go-to here that I've been throwing for the majority of the time. This thing's starting to get beat and is actually getting to be pretty long for me because it has very little fade, still has some good turn to it. It's not swoopy. This is probably one of my main distance drivers right now just because I don't crush. I like precision and accuracy over distance, and the air sword does just that for me. It's been really nice. The new one that I'm working with right now is an Air Havoc, Opto Air Havoc, 158 on this one. And I knew the halo was going to be a little hoggy for me. I thought I'd give the Havoc a try just based on the numbers alone. And I'm really starting to like it. It's actually a little bit longer than my sword when I get one off really nice. I can power grip this. It feels really comfortable in the hand. Does a nice turn out to the right. Not a real huge fade to it. I'm getting some really good D with this Air Havoc, so I'm liking that. It's kind of a toss-up right now. If I'm feeling fresh and I really want to get one off, I'm usually trying the Havoc off the tee. If I want to be a little safer and still get down the fairway reasonably, then I'll just go to my sword. So they don't really overlap. It kind of just gives me a little bit of an option and makes me feel like I have a choice in the shot as far as when I'm trying to get some distance. So the Air Havoc has been working its way in. And the other one that I've been messing with a little bit is the Air Balista. The pink, for some reason, tends to be really overstable, and I'm probably going to try a different color of it, but I've got a few friends right now that are crushing this Air Balista, so I thought I'd give it a try. Hasn't officially made its way in the bag yet, but it's something that I'm working with. And the last one is my Understable Driver, and that is a West Side Queen in the tourney plastic. This is one of my only non-air drivers in my bag. It's 167 grams in the tourney plastic. Tourney's always a little bit easier for me to turn over, and this thing is a mean roller as well. I've been throwing more and more rollers this season. I've been getting some good ones off with my sword. I originally started throwing a roller with an Understable disc, a Fury, because I've seen a lot of people have success with that. But I put my rollers down a little bit earlier than most. I don't really sky them out. So having a little bit more stability in my roller has been helping me, and I've been throwing it with a sword. But I've put down a few really nice ones with this Queen. And also I like the Queen because it's kind of just like a beat-in version of the King right off the shelf. I was throwing a really nice older run pearly white 167 tourney plastic King. I lost it. And I tried 3 or 4 times to replace that King with another similar one, weight and plastic and everything, and I had a hard time kind of duplicating the flight. I know mine was a little bit beat in, but for some reason I've lost the touch with the King a little bit. So the Queen having the -2.2 has been huge for me. I can stand this thing up. I can actually lean on this pretty decently and get a nice turn out of it, soft fade. And again, I've been throwing a little bit of a roller with it. I got a huge one off the other day that I was really stoked with, so I'll probably be doing some more of that. But that's my Understable Driver for the most part. Got pretty much everything covered. I've got a couple things in my bag that I'm trying out. Got some new putters and a Lucid Judge as well that I'm working with. So trying to kind of slim down the bag a little bit over the winter and work on some new things. We'll see where that takes me, but I feel like I've got my bag pretty dialed for my arm speed as far as being able to cover all the shots that I encounter on the course. So anyway, my name's Jason Oxsen, Team Dynamic Disc, Team Cali Connection Disc Golf. I hope you enjoyed it. I just kind of wanted to give you a look at what's in my bag and see what I throw and kind of explain some of the shots that I use them for. If you ever have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'm still learning. It was a real long journey, kind of switching my bag over to all DD lat west side, and it's been really nice, especially my dynamic disc lineup in my mid-ranges. I'm really stoked on. I feel like I've got every shot covered. The addition of the gold line Claymore was huge, so that was nice. And hey, thanks, have a great season, and I'll see you out there.